You're watching UATV News. My name is Inna Kosinska. Good evening. The International Climate Conference under the auspices of the United Nations is taking place in the Scottish Glasgow. World leaders gather there to discuss the urgent problems of climate change. In particular, they stress on the necessity to cut carbon emissions and in general preserve the planet for generations to come. Earlier, delivering an opening speech, UN Secretary-General urged the international community to stop treating the planet like a resource base and cease poisoning the humankind with waste and carbon. In turn, talking to the delegates, Ukrainian president said about our country's plan and obligations to cut greenhouse gas emissions till the year 2030, and called on everyone to pay more attention to the environmental threats caused by warfare in eastern Ukraine and illegal occupation of the Crimean Peninsula.
We are digging our own graves. Our planet is changing before our eyes, from the ocean depths to mountain tops, from melting glaciers to relentless extreme weather events. Recent climate action announcements might give the impression that we are on track to turn things around. This is an illusion.
Планета отримала дві.
The planet also got two ecological bombs in the center of Europe. Those are the occupied Crimea and part of our Ukrainian Donbass. The Crimean Peninsula, with unique flora and fauna, has become a naval base of the Russian Federation. And at Donbass, we have the flooding of mines, soil degradation and shortage of water. All of this is happening right now. This is a common threat for the world.
The U.S. administration held consultations with allies on the situation on the Russian-Ukrainian border. This was announced by advisor to the President of the United States for National Security, Jake Sullivan. He commented on the information by the Washington Post published on October 31st that Russia is concentrating troops and equipment to the Ukrainian border.
We had the opportunity to consult over the past weekend with key allies and partners on the issue of Ukraine and ensuring that we are defending Ukraine's or supporting Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We will continue to monitor the situation closely.
The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine denied reports on the concentration of Russian troops along the Ukrainian borders the day before. The department assured the special forces do not record any transfer of additional military equipment and weapons or the build-up of the occupying country's contingent. The reports were called information war and an attempt to intimidate. Military expert Oleg Zhdanov also agrees with this position. According to him, such stuffing happens when Russia needs to get some kind of political results.
The main task of the Russian Federation is to awake public opinion to a state of hysteria, and so that we agree to any proposals of Russia on Donbass. Russia never does it for nothing. It is always looking for political preferences, and in this case we are already observing an increase in shelling by the Russian occupation forces and the advancement of new political demands, such as the return of MP Viktor Medvedchuk to the trilateral contact group, and so on. Sometimes when Russia needs to put pressure on Ukraine, it becomes more active. We are not talking about progress in terms of the movement of troops, the formation of an offensive grouping.
Third illegal detention of Crimean Tatars in the occupied Crimean over the past 7 days. Shocking video recently appeared on social media. The so-called police officers in Simferopol are brutally forcing 19 people into a police bus. Among those who were in the wrong place at the detention were pregnant women and insulin-dependent women and even children. Why did they scare the invaders so much, and what is currently known about their fate? My colleagues found out. At some point, after having made a warning, the security forces came running and started pushing everyone into the bus without any explanation or reason. I had my child and my mother left on the street. I mean, the police are now taking me to an unclear destination, and my child is staying with my mother.
This video was recorded literally 10 minutes after illegal detention of 19 Crimean Tatars. Activists came to the Crimean Garrison Military Court of Simferopol to support their arbitrarily jailed compatriots, the defendants in the so-called Hizb ut-Tahrir case. And so, as anyone can see in this video, they all were keeping up with all quarantine restrictions.
One of the detained women is pregnant, and she only had time to hand over the youngest child to the mother. They almost grabbed her with the kid. To put pressure on people, they were kept without water and lavatory for hours, unable to see a lawyer.
After 4 hours of arbitrary detention, 2 of them were released, a correspondent of the Crimean Solidarity outlet and an insult-independent woman. 6 more women were released from the police station in the late afternoon. Police drew up the arrest records against 18 out of 19 participants, citing the provision failure to comply with the emergency rules. Now they face a fine up to 30,000 rubles, which is over $400.
Я инсулинозависимая, поэтому мне необходимо...
I am insulin dependent. I need injections on time. They did not let me go on time. Kept me half an hour over since I needed to take injection. And now they let me go. The record was not drawn up.
In the last week alone, this is the 3rd mass detention of Crimean Tatar activists. All at one plot, people are brutally pushed into the bus and taken to the department, giving no reason.
No materials, records, other legal documents which would clearly state the reason for the detention. Yet, even according to the legislation of the Russian Federation, until the circumstances are clarified, it is possible to detain for no more than 3 hours. They are holding people for more than 3 hours.
In connection with the illegal detentions carried out by the Crimean occupation authorities, the Majlis of the Crimean Tatar people insists on applying radical political actions, namely tightening political and economic sanctions against the occupying country. Reported by Nick Starkov and Irina Kovalenko, UATV News.
Ukrainian MP Viktor Medvedchuk, suspected of treason and attempted looting of national values, may have the measure of restraint changed. The prosecution will ask to transfer to a personal obligation. This was reported in the office of the Prosecutor General of Ukraine. The 6-month term of Medvedchuk's house arrest in this criminal proceeding expires and can no longer be extended. The only preventive measure that prosecutors can petition for is a personal obligation. However, Medvedchuk will remain under house arrest for another criminal proceeding. He is accused of treason and assistance of terrorist activities.
Among the duties that prosecutors will ask to assign to the suspected parliamentarian arrive at each request of the pretrial investigation body, prosecutor or court. Not to leave Kyiv and Kyiv region without the permission of investigator, prosecutor or court. Inform the investigator, prosecutor or court about any change of his place of residence and or place of work. Refrain from communicating with suspects, witnesses in accordance with the list determined by the investigator or prosecutor. Submit to the pretrial investigation body passports for traveling abroad and other documents that give him the right to leave Ukraine and enter Ukraine. Wear an electronic control device. From the message of the Office of the Prosecutor General of Ukraine in Telegram.
Almost 200 residents of the eastern Ukrainian Donetsk region received monetary compensation for housing destroyed as a result of the hostilities. For this, the Ministry for Reintegration of the Temporarily Occupied Territories of Ukraine has allocated more than $1.7 million. People are paid almost $12,000 to purchase new housing. Until the end of the year, about 100 more citizens living along the contact line will receive monetary compensation, representatives of the regional state administration informed.
Those funds that are provided by the ministry according to a coordinated algorithm, the residents whose homes were destroyed will receive the specified monetary compensation.
More than $25 million were transferred for the salaries of miners. This money to be spent to fully pay off the debt for July and August, as well as wages for September. Almost $13 million were provided for salaries in December. Last month, the Parliament of Ukraine passed amendments to the state budget and additionally sent $38 million to pay the miners. Almost every 40 seconds, hackers attack the websites of government agencies around the globe. And over the past 5 years, the number of cyber attacks has increased by more than 10%. But private businesses suffer most of all, say experts of the fourth international forum Cybersecurity, Protect Business, Protect the State, which was launched in Kyiv. Deputy Secretary of National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine is confident that defeating cybercrimes is possible through coordinated interaction of government agencies and the private sector.
It is very difficult to ensure reliable cyberspace security without the interaction of the private sector with the state. In some cases, it is almost impossible because from year to year, the private sector is the main subject of attacks. Cyber weapons and viruses are honed on it in order to further attack government agencies.
"700 people died yesterday from complications of coronavirus disease. Almost 19,500 new cases of COVID-19 were registered. More than 3,100 patients were hospitalized. Most of the cases were recorded in Odessa and Dnipro regions, as well as in the capital. At the same time, over 273,000 Ukrainians got vaccinated against COVID-19 the day before. More than 1,000 of mobile teams, 3,000 vaccination stations, and 411 vaccination centers work throughout the country. More than 7.5 million Ukrainians have already undergone a full course of immunization, and almost 10.5 million got the first jab. In the next 2 weeks, the situation with the spread of coronavirus in Ukraine is expected to stabilize. This was announced by Prime Minister Shmyhal during his working trip to the Zaporizhia region. According to him, the tightening of quarantine measures in the country works effectively and helps to fight COVID-19.
We expect stabilization and further improvement of the sickness rate situation, but without vaccination we understand that the pandemic cannot be overcome. Therefore, the key task for each region, for each head of the regional state administration, for each chief physician is to perform vaccination, create appropriate infrastructure and opportunities to immunize the maximum number of people.
Patients with COVID-19 consume 5-6 times more oxygen during the current wave of the disease. This was announced by the Ministry of Health. At the beginning of October, oxygen consumption in Ukraine made 280 tons daily. Now this figure is 367 tons. The department emphasizes that there is enough oxygen in the country and hospitals are provided with it.
Starting mid-October, the two largest oxygen producers went on scheduled maintenance work. Earlier, the Ministry of Health asked them to provide a reserve of oxygen for the hospitals until the completion of their maintenance works. We kept the situation under control. Both manufacturers returned to work yesterday.
Hundreds of Ukrainian kids are contracting coronavirus disease daily. To improve the situation, the Ministry of Health approved vaccination of children over 12 years old. So how does one get a teenager vaccinated? Our correspondents found out.
If your arm hurts or there is any discomfort, if it hurts to raise your arm or take it back today, tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, this is fine. It's not a problem.
Nikita is 14. He's a good student at school and he especially likes biology. Therefore, he approached the issue of vaccination responsibly. Having studied the latest research at the World Health Organization's recommendations, he decided to get vaccinated.
I want to set an example for my grandparents. They don't want to get vaccinated yet. They explain it in different ways. For example, by the fact that they have heart problems. They think this is a serious contraindication and are afraid of side effects. But I tell them that if a person has some diseases, then on the contrary, this is an indication for vaccination.
Teens can only be vaccinated given parental consent and only if a parent is present. A teenager older than 16 is only free to consult with a pediatrician or family doctor. Therefore, Nikita's dad came to support him.
When a child is vaccinated, parents are always calm, because you cannot know when you let your child go to school if all other parents have the same attitude to the health of their children.
The Ministry of Health recommends vaccinating children only with Pfizer's Comirnaty vaccine. The department notes that they took into account scientific research and recommendations of the World Health Organization. Vaccination should be carried out according to the scheme, 2 jabs, with an interval of 24 to 28 days.
Doctors say Delta virus strain is much more dangerous for children. They often have a severe course and end up in hospitals, so they need to be vaccinated primarily to stay healthy. In addition, children infect adults, their relatives, teachers, for whom COVID-19 can be fatal.
To arrange the vaccination of a teenager, parents must get a referral from a pediatrician or family doctor. It is also important to have a preventive vaccination card. And with these documents, one can choose the vaccination point where Pfizer Comirnaty vaccine is available.
Children feel very well after vaccination. We have been vaccinating children for quite a long time. There may be standard side effects that can be classified as mild side effects. Pain in the injection site, some weakness and body temperature of 37.2–37.3 degrees Celsius.
Teens cannot yet personally receive an electronic COVID certificate. Parents have to upload the document to their personal account in the DIA application.
Будь-яке щеплення, яке проводиться від коронавірусної хвороби.
Any COVID-19 jab given is uploaded into the electronic healthcare system. This is the only source of data from which the application doctor or any other resource, if it has the right to do so, must take the information.
Ukraine is not the first country where teenagers got permission to be vaccinated. Children over the age of 12 are vaccinated in the United States and the European Union. In addition, in late July, children over the age of 5 were allowed to be vaccinated with Pfizer vaccine in Israel. Reported by Nick Starkov and Yulia Bardesh, UATV News.
The start of the grant season 2022. Next year, the authors of the best projects will receive money from the Ukrainian Culture Fund to implement their ideas. According to Vladislav Berkovsky, director of the foundation, projects aimed at preserving cultural heritage, creating a barrier-free space and countering Russian propaganda will be eligible for the grants.
Ми продовжуємо жити в умовах війни.
We continue to live in the conditions of war. This is aggression. Part of our territory is occupied and is under the heel of the invader. And our work, as well as the work of the entire cultural community and the community of creative industries, is to ensure that, first, there is a feeling that these areas continue to remain ours. We have not forgotten. We will return them. And the second is the support of our fighters on the front line.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook pages. Thank you for staying with the UATV channel. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.